Hi guys, um, this is my YouTube video for Theory 4 talking about an introduction to tonal harmony in the late 19th century. So as we know, by the time we get to the late 19th century, tonal harmony is really starting to be stretched to its limits. There are several things that are happening here all at once, which I would like to share with you from our textbook. One, use of harmonic models beyond the circle of fifths, in particular chromatic mediant relationships, an increased number of chromatic sequent types. A mediant relationship, again, is the distance from one chord to another chord that's a third away, either a major third or a minor third. Chromatic mediants we'll talk about in just a moment. But in a chromatic mediant, both chords have the same quality. They're both major or minor. And they have one common tone between them. I'll show you that in a bit. Now, other things that happened were that composers were much more likely to give their music greater chromatic pitches in number and to emphasize those chromatic pitches by putting them in particularly noticeable registers to use dynamics to bring them out and so on. So chromatic pitches became more than just non-chord tones per se, but they became an integral part of the chord structures themselves. To that end, they oftentimes like to move from one key to the other very rapidly. And what that would do would be to really give a blurred sense to the tonality. What key are we in? I like this one. The use of modulatory paths. There's a great phrase, a modulatory path. By using modulatory paths that have enharmonic reinterpretations. There's our enharmonic reinterpretation, the dominant seventh, the augmented sixth, the diminished sevenths, and so on, augmented triads. All of these are used to modulate from one area to another, as we saw, for example, with the dominant seventh, rewritten as a German sixth, with an A sharp instead of a B flat at the top. It can take us elsewhere. Avoiding strong key-affirming dominant tonic cadences for long stretches of time. Now, if we go back, of course, to Mozart and Beethoven, they would play with this, but eventually 5 was going to go to 1. Oh, they might do a deceptive cadence, but they would get us to 1. In the late 19th century, it almost became a bit of a game, if you will, to see how long we could withhold the progression to the tonic from the dominant. We've already seen some of those things, like by using augmented sixths and so on to work as predominants or Neapolitan sixths, predominant chords, This just gets stretched out more and more. Withholding, I just said that, treating dissonances more freely, using dissonance and tendency tones more for their coloristic qualities than in traditional functional roles. There's a piece by Debussy, it sounds quite comical. It sounds like this. It's just a bunch of parallel triads. I'm not even sure those are the right ones, but you get the idea. Those chords really have no relationship to each other. They are just used in a very free sort of way. Oh, hello. Here's Susie. She wants to meet you all. Oh, come here, baby. Oh, now she's walking away from me. Come here. Everybody would like to see you. Here she is. Oh, this is Susie. She's the lioness. She was just batting me on the back for attention. Say hi to everybody. Susanna. Her brother is Figaro. That's very operatic, right? Good. All right. A willingness to explore the entire collection of chromatic pitches, thus breaking away from chromaticism, working within a framework of diatonic chord structure, but actually replacing the diatonic chord structure with chromaticism. All right, that's a lot. It's a mouthful. Let me just show you a couple of the ways this is done. One of the most common things that was explored in the late 19th century was the mediant relationship. Now, there's types of mediant relationships. The most basic one we're very familiar with. It's called a diatonic mediant. In a diatonic mediant, we have chords that are a third apart within a given key. So, for example, E flat going to G minor, they are contrasting qualities. One is major, the other is minor, or vice versa, and they share two common tones. So E flat major and G minor share G and B flat. This works, of course, with a major key in its relative minor. C major, A minor, and they share two common tones, C and E. But by and far, the one that the Romantics, the late 18th century composers were really attracted to was the chromatic mediant. Here you've got roots, again, that are a major third or a minor third apart, but both triads are the same quality. That is, they're both major or they're both minor. And they have only one common tone. So, for example, D major and F major, those are a minor third apart. One is major, one is minor. They both share the common tone of A. This is the one I always say is the Star Wars relationship. John Williams used that really, really prominently in his music for the Star Wars film. So one thing that's useful with the chromatic mediant is that by using the common tone, you can modulate from one key to the other. So we're going along in D major. We just got to F major. So this opens up a whole new field for modulations. Mozart did this. I mean, this isn't just the 19th century. Mozart did it as well. But it becomes so much more common in the late 19th century. Now, we also have something called a doubly chromatic mediant. Is this the most distant mediant relationship? The roots, as is the case for all of these, are a major third or a minor third apart. They're contrasting triad qualities. One is major, one is minor, but they have no common tones. So, for example, here's B flat major and D flat minor. I think John Williams may have used that too. But those two chords, a third apart, have no common tones. Now, let me show you an example of a piece, very, very famous, that will, I think, illustrate all of these things. Richard Wagner wrote a very famous opera called Tristan und Isolde. At the very beginning, he writes a prelude that is meant to suggest longing and passion and mystery and all sorts of things. So he uses a very extreme example of chromatic harmony. It begins like this. Now, that ends on a 5/7 of E, which would resolve to A minor, but he doesn't. He just lets it hang there. And then he does this. He ends on a G7, which might resolve to C, but it doesn't. He does this. Now the thing about this is that these are all a third apart. They're all a mediant relationship. We have A to F, then we have B to G sharp, and then finally we have D to B. So F, okay, then E, G7, and now B. So E, G, B, mediant relationships. That's the underlying structure that holds this whole thing together. Well, this is about all the time I have to get this on YouTube, so I'm going to stop now. Please, if you have any questions, contact me. I'm going to try my darndest to get this interactive as soon as I can. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.